So, good morning. So, I'm Phil, I'm a storyteller, as you know, and as you know. And what are we doing here? Well, we're going to I tell folk tales and fairy tales, myths and legends, and I'm going to hopefully pass on some of these skills to you. And then you are going to, over the next weeks, choose something in the museum, and you're going to use those skills in order to tell a story about whatever it is that speaks to you in the museum. But don't
Sigma. That makes me drastic now. A cow.
It's hot chocolate.
It's some kind of goop.
Oh, it's a long time now. And a cloud.
It's a grain of sand.
It's a spider. No. Spider.
Oh, it's a lion. A cow.
It's another cow. Wise fool character. So, from the stories that we have of him, sometimes he appears to be really wise, sometimes he appears to be really foolish, but there's always something in them for us to kind of ponder. And they tell stories about him in Greece, in the Balkans, in the Middle East, so a really wide area. He has different names in different places. And this is a story about the Hodja. One day, he got a job as a teacher. No, he'd never been a teacher before. So I don't know how he got a job, but he got his job as a teacher. And he turned up the first day. And he made his way through the building and came to the classroom, and he opened the door and he stood in front of the class and he said, "Do you know what you're going to learn today?" And all the students looked at each other. No. And he said, "Well, if you don't know what you're going to learn today, what am I doing here?" And he turned around and he left. He came back the next day, through the building, classroom, opened the door, stood in front of the class and said, "Do you know what you're going to learn today?" Of course, they thought they learned something, didn't they? So they said,
Yes.
and he said, "Well, if you already know what you're going to learn today, what am I doing here?" And he turned around and he walked out. When he came back on the third day, students cut other classes, it was packed, everybody came to see what this crazy teacher would do next. He opened the door and stood in front of them and he said, "Do you know what you're going to learn today?" And half of them said,
Yes.
and half of them said,
No.
and he said, "I suggest the half that do know teach the half that don't." I don't usually tell stories for much of a purpose, other than to kind of share them and entertain, but I tell that one because that's how you're going to learn it. Really, you're going to learn more from each other than you're going to learn from me. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is how human beings communicate. They communicate through stories. We're always telling stories. Understand ourselves through stories, understand the world through stories, understand others through stories. And we do this stuff all the time. So everybody's already a storyteller. But there is one element there that I steered you away from because I asked what could you see happening? And that is visualization, that's the mind's eye. So when I tell a story, I'm not trying to remember words. I am remembering the story as a series of pictures in my head. And then I use words to paint those pictures for the listener. And whatever words I've got, about 85% I reckon is the same every time. But some days my vocabulary is much smaller than other days. Sometimes the word doesn't come. So as long as you've got that picture in your head and you paint that picture. And for me, that's the secret of stories, is the secret of storytelling, or one of the keys of storytelling. Because the more you visualize the story world yourself, the more that communicates to the listeners. So when I was telling you stories, Roger and who kind of got images in their minds? And it's an odd thing, because I say that I see it in pictures, but for me it's a bit more like dreaming. So they're there, and then if I try to focus on them, they sort of slip away a bit. But there are techniques, or on details stick as well, and make notice of detail, and that might go to a story. I want you to tell the story of your shoes. So, that can be a place they've taken you, the day you bought them, what someone might experience if they spent a day in your shoes. It could be that I didn't really want to put these shoes on this morning, I don't even like them, I should put some other shoes on, we'll tell the story of those shoes. Whatever.
Right, okay. Let's have a little think.
When you say spending a day in your shoes, does that mean literally or sort of?
I'm
Is
going
it
to
just a
say
story?
whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
And we knew this all because he lived in a massive house on a farm where he didn't have a door to his house. He just climbed in the same window every day, which meant he frequently got robbed. And he also didn't have a driveway to his house or a gate or anything. He just drove through the same fence every time he wanted to come in and out. And one day he woke up and he was like, I'm missing something in my life. Like, it doesn't matter if there's no door in his house or a way to his house. He decided he really needed a rhino. Like, he seriously needed a rhino.
God, what am I missing? And he goes, I'm missing a cloud baby. So he goes, I need a cloud baby. So he goes, right, okay, I'm going to get on my bicycle, my cloud bicycle, and start going through the clouds, hopping from one to the other, until he gets to the cloud village. So, because he's a bit of an outsider. So he gets to this main cloud village and goes, can I have that donkey? And the cloud person goes, no, not that donkey, because you don't need a donkey, you need this. He goes, yeah, I don't need a donkey, I need a cloud baby. Because he's a bit stupid, obviously.
He lived on his own, never, he's sort of an outcast. One day, he wakes up and he feels like he's missing something in his life. He's thinking, what do I need? And he just thinks, you know what, I want a donkey. He's like, you know what, I'll get a donkey. So he jumps out of his house and slides down the dunes and walks to the nearest village, which is a too far.
Once upon a time, there was a hunter that was banned from his village because he was very rude to his chief. And one day it starts absolutely tipping it down with thunder and lightning in it, or like a horrible day out here. And so he seeks shelter in this mountainside, in this cave. And he sits down, and next to him, surprisingly, there's a skull. And he's mumbling under his breath. He's really angry towards the chief because he was banned. And
Because you're going to use these skills eventually, in 3 weeks' time, to tell a story about something that kind of speaks to you in the museum, an object in the museum. But that story doesn't have to be, you're not the museum curator. It doesn't have to be an historical story. It can just be something, this thing sparked something for you and you want to tell a story about it. That story could be a folktale somehow that links to you, but it can be a story that you completely make up yourself. It can be sci-fi, it could be any genre, anything. It's just an inspiration.
Kind of speaking, but I thought this kind of basic story idea I had was maybe combining like two pieces. So I can't remember her name. It was like directly opposite that. At the other end, there's like a painting of a woman.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's like the back of the church or like the back of the building.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe like putting them together.
Yeah. Whatever inspires you, however you respond, you can't go wrong.
Pirate is something in the top. I also like, there was like a little ring and it had little like stones in it that were like different colours.
Yeah.
I thought that would be good if you're going to tell a story about like the fox, that could be the ring that you try to put off with his hand when you put it off.
Nice. That's good. I love that Mr. Fox stories.
water manufacturer.
Yeah.
But I thought of a story like he hid whiskey in the bottles and moved them around the country factory or something, disguised as a water manufacturer or something.
Nice, yeah. Smuggling pirates.
I saw pirates. When I saw the whole,
Yeah.
that caught my eye. So just trying to tell a story that's based on one that's sort of flipping about. I'll think of something.
Okay.
The little dwarf god head.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cute.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's I think it's like an arrow, like a bow and arrow. I thought the story with the harp of fairyland or something, you could change it so he has like a bow and arrow, and then that's how he impresses people by like shooting things from far away.
This Mel made a start with a story map, so if you're taking a text, draw it as a story map, throw the text away. So, because this gives you a chance to visualize while you're doing it as well, and then you've got the map, and then tell it from the map.